How should the MCU reboot Magneto? Hi, I'm Jason Inman.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
I'm not Magneto, but we're here to answer nerd questions on the internet because our patrons who support this YouTube channel, patreon.com/Jawiin, link down in the description, help support this channel and they ask us cool questions like...
How should the MCU reboot Magneto?
Reboot! That's a hard word to say. Ashley, who gave us this question?
BRYAN J. BRYAN, who refused to give us his last name. BRYAN J.
BRYAN J is in the Witness Protection Program, hiding out from Magneto. Currently, speaking of things hiding out from Magneto, my book, Super Soldier, is available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. Currently hiding from Magneto. Go order. I think you're going to enjoy it if you enjoy comic books. Ashley, this is a tough question.
It is a tough question.
It's a tough question once because we don't know how the X-Men are going to be rebooted, or we probably shouldn't say rebooted. We should probably say how they're going to be combined.
We actually did.
With the MCU?
We actually did a previous
I forgot about
Mine University producer level video on how should the FF or X-Men be integrated
And we said
into
the
the
FF.
MCU. And
we said the FF.
You know, so it's this. The idea of the thought experiment of this is a little difficult for me because, like I said in that video, I don't think X-Men should be in the MCU.
Well, he has a little bit. Let's read his question. He has a little bit of a longer question to this, and maybe it'll help clarify our thoughts here a little bit more.
If there is a reboot of the X-Men movies again, is there a way to bring Magneto into the modern era as a legitimate threat and keep his World War II survivor backstory, considering that would make him 80 or 90 years old?
Okay, so that's the biggest problem, is that Magneto very famously is a Holocaust survivor, which in modern day would make him 90 years old. Now, in the comic books...
I mean, depending on how young he was at the time, of course.
Sure. But in the comic books, even at his youngest, he would be somewhere... He'd be in his mid-80s right now. Even at his youngest.
Yeah.
So in the comic books, they have sort of retconned this by making that his magnetic powers keep him young. They've also, there was a formula that went around the Marvel Universe. That's the formula that keeps Nick Fury young. It's called the Infinity something formula. Serum, whatever. I think Magneto got a touch of that. I think there have been several retcons for why he's so old.
Look, the easiest way to do it is to do one of two things.
Okay.
You set the X-Men movie in the past.
Interesting.
Which I think they'd ultimately have done unsuccessfully.
Oh, I think First Class is great.
Look, you can love First Class, you can love any of those movies, but the fact that they're now in the 90s and they still look the same, their tracking timeline failed. But the idea of that's a good idea. So you either set it in the past, which would pretty much divorce it from the current MCU, which I'd be fine with.
Can I put a pause? My thing is, I think they should have kept all those movies in the 60s. But
I agree.
Continue.
And that's how you do it effectively.
Yep.
Or. You know, we all know, most people know Magneto's origin from
X-Men
First
1.
Class.
And X-Men 1, yeah.
And we all know that he was experimented on in the camp. So just say that something, you can even say, something from my time in the camps has given me long life or has made me harder to kill.
Interesting.
I think those are like two very easy ways to skirt the issue entirely. I also would be fine if we have to have the X-Men in the MCU if we don't see Magneto. If we go to a newer generation. We've seen Scott and Jean. We've seen that class so many times. Even in the current continuity, like we've gotten all the way back to the same characters that we started the X-Men movies with. Why not do someone else? Even Emma Frost, who I hate. You know, I think there's a lot of other X-Men characters that and then that would skirt this issue entirely.
Well,
I'm
gonna put on my writer hat here,
sure.
And I'm gonna pitch an idea out. Now, I don't think it's the greatest idea. This is just me pitching an idea. This is what happens when you write. You just throw out an idea. You don't know whether it's any good, but you say it out loud. One, there's no reason why he couldn't be a survivor of a different horrible catastrophe. Magneto could be a survivor of the Yugoslavian genocides in the 90s, the Bosnia, all that. He could be, that would keep him European. It would age him quite a bit up. He could have been a young man. That is the same thing. The other option is to race bend Magneto. What if he's a survivor of Rwanda? You know, what if he's a survivor of Somalia? What or Darfur? He's like, you race bend Magneto. You would still get the same idea. It's just a thing of that, the reason why he was a survivor of World War II was the same reason why Captain America was, because when he was published in the 1960s, that was 20 years ago. Less than 20 years ago.
I don't hate that idea.
Yeah.
People will hate
Again,
that
I'm just
idea.
saying, I'm not saying this is the way to do it. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
But people will be mad.
Cool.
But by grounding him in World War II, that at least in the Western world, that's something that we all know a lot about. We are taught about that in our school. Rwanda wasn't that long ago, and a lot of people don't even know that it happened.
I know, a lot of people don't know about the fur, too. And I'm terrible at pronouncing that name. I'm
Croatia
sorry.
For that, which is a
white
people nation.
Yep. Fun fact, you are directly connected to that event.
I am. My father was a peacekeeper in Croatia when I was a tiny little baby, and then I went there as a tourist.
I will say,
but I don't know.
People have forgotten about that, but that was a big deal when it was happening on the news.
Yeah.
Like, I remember them reporting about it a lot.
Yeah, my dad was in Bosnia too.
Yeah.
But I don't know if those are impactful on the world scale the way even now.
Well, and
World War II, and that's where the conversation comes
and that's
from.
the problem. We have not had a world war.
I mean, it's
We've
not
had
a problem.
actions.
It's fine.
Sure. Oh, sure.
but yes, in terms of the narrative.
To me, I don't know. See, to me, like, part of the inherent awesomeness of the X-Men franchise is the Martin Luther King, Professor X,
Malcolm X.
Oh,
sorry, I apologize.
I was getting them mixed up. It's my apology. Because Professor X is Martin Luther King and Malcolm X is Magneto.
Yes.
Is their relationship. So I understand your point. I would make the argument, yes, there needs to be a different villain. It should not be Magneto.
Yeah.
But I think to keep Magneto away from that franchise is a mistake. He's inherently part of that franchise, and whether he's good or bad is But the problem is that they've done the same thing that they did with the Joker. Is that Magneto? You have to explain why Magneto is or isn't in every movie.
Yes.
Which becomes problematic. The bigger problem with the Magneto thing to me is, how do you still make him, whatever you do, because you're gonna have to either race bend him or change him or have him be a time traveler, is how do you keep him a contemporary of Charles Xavier? They have to be around the same age or else it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't have Magneto be 60 years old and Charles be 20. It just doesn't work.
No, there can't be maybe more than 10 years difference between them.
Yeah,
they have to conceivably be friends.
So they both have to sort of have grown up or have met around the same time.
Yeah, and sort of gone through similar
no matter what you do. I mean, like, to be honest with you, I'm not again, they won't do it because First Class just did it. But I would not have been opposed to the X-Men just completely existing in the 60s. Just completely existing in the 60s. I don't know. Let me ask you this. What if there's another option is, what if Magneto is not connected to any kind of genocide at all?
Well, then, I mean,
he's just a villain.
Sure, but that to me cuts the knees out of everything that's interesting about him.
Well, but
and again, another easier solution would be like make him a victim of some mutant genocide.
Well, that's what I'm gonna say. Like, what if they make a fictional event? Because Malcolm X is not directly connected to any direct genocide. I mean, he's connected to the American Civil Rights Movement and those terrible things. So why couldn't the writers create a new mutant civil rights incident?
Sure.
And that would still give Magneto the same power as Malcolm X.
They could, but again, I don't know if with something fictional, again, like World War II is this shorthand that we all, because of pop culture, that we all understand, and because of that story, we excuse a lot of what Magneto goes through, whereas like Malcolm X is coming out of civil rights, which, I mean, there's an argument to be made that the treatment of African Americans is like a genocide. But I don't know, and this is a tough question.
Well, see, there's the other
time works in a very specific way.
There's the other question: what if Magneto's black?
I mean, I'd love it. Cast Mahershala Ali. Thank you. Goodbye.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing casting.
Yeah.
He would be a great Mahershala. Yeah.
And then cast Daniel Kaluuya. No, he's already in them. But, cast someone and shave their head to be Professor X, another African American.
Who would be in a good African American?
But someone who's got a good head, right?
Yeah,
it's got
to be somebody that's good bald. I don't know if Daniel Kaluuya is good enough.
He's also in Black Panther.
Or has a good enough presence for Charles. That's we got to think about that one.
Yeah, so you need someone to be about in their 40s because Mahershala is in his 40s.
What if Magneto is a victim of? Again, he's a victim of African American prejudice and mutant prejudice. I mean, that would be enough for me. Here's the other thing, and the reason why we're having so many problems with this is because, and I said this before in our MCU Mutants and Fantastic Four video as well, bringing the mutants and the X-Men into the MCU, to me, creates a lot of story problems.
It's a whole can of worms.
And it's one of those things that I have no solution for, and I have no direct thing because I haven't been paid the thousands of dollars to sit in a room for a month and figure it out.
Exactly.
If you give me a month and you pay all my bills for the next month, I bet you 30 days from now I would have you a really great pitch.
Yeah,
but
well, that's the only thing you're focusing on.
the most I've thought about is this is the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. I will say the MCU missed a great casting opportunity by putting Tilda Swinton in Doctor Strange and not making her Cassandra Nova.
They could still do that.
I mean, sure they could.
She should have just been Professor X.
Great.
Gender bend them. I'm up for race bending and gender bending all of them. Let's go crazy.
Why not?
Go crazy.
Why not?
I mean, I'm still trying to think about who would be a good black Charles Xavier.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about that.
Taye Diggs.
This is a tough one. I mean, if he wasn't too old, I'd say Lance Reddick.
He
but
does look good bald.
I know, but he's a little bit.
Is he in his 50s?
Yeah, he's older. I think he's in his 60s now. He's up there.
He would have been a good choice, though. He's got great ears for it.
I mean, he's just a solid actor.
Yeah.
He's just a solid actor. I don't have any
and
good
then you
choices.
could make Idris Elba, but like
I'm
buffed
telling
out
you,
Idris
people,
Elba, the Juggernaut.
We have
That'd
stumbled
be
onto
so
something
great.
great here. Mahershala Ali as Magneto. I would pay he would be such a great Magneto. He's so good for that
Oh
part.
my God, this is what you do, right? So you make Mahershala, you make him Magneto, and then you make the dude who is the voice of Miles's dad, Xavier.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know who he is either.
Well, that's not helpful.
But because
I'm
they're
sorry,
the
I don't have
good
a phone
guy
on me.
and the bad guy in Spider-Verse.
Oh. That's not what we'll do. I don't know.
Solved it. And then Shamik Moore is Race Bent Scott.
Again, if this was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, your Charles Xavier is LeVar Burton. Right?
Art
Yeah.
stopped.
It's LeVar Burton.
Oh my God.
Not only because of reading Rainbow, but also because of Roots.
I just had a hilarious thought about who to make Charles Xavier.
Who?
Lin-Manuel Miranda. Because
Sure.
he's so warm and so nice.
Sure, why not? Why not? Who cares, man? Go for it. Let's rock it in. I don't know. I don't have any. Charles is a hard part to cast because Patrick Stewart is literally Charles Xavier come to life. They were lucky they found James McAvoy for that part.
Oh,
because
truly.
James McAvoy is so good that he's able to stand. But Patrick Stewart is literally Charles Xavier popped out of the pages.
Well,
so.
Xavier needs to be equal parts your nice uncle and the guy who will sacrifice you for the greater good. And that's a complicated balance. But you want him to feel trustworthy.
Yeah, I like where this video went. Anyways,
So how do you put Magneto in the MCU?
Magic.
We don't know.
Magic. BRYAN J in the Witness Protection Program. Be careful out there, especially since you live on 1313 South Lane Road, Massachusetts, Oregon. That makes no sense.
Oregon.
Just go with it.
Thank you for providing us the first question that really stumped us.
Yes, and if you want to provide a question that could also stump us as well, go to patreon.com/Jawiin. It's a link down in the description. Support these videos and ask us any nerdy question you want. Help us find the Black Charles Xavier, and we'll see you next time, Super Friends.